So I think it's about time to pay respects to the Triple Gem, using this shrine as our focus. And then we'll spend some time sitting together, and then if there's a request, I'll offer a talk based on one of the suttas. So Bhagava Dhamma Sambuddho Swakāto Yena Bhagavata Dhammo Supatipanno Yasabhagavato Sāvaka Sangho Namayam Bhagavantang Sadhammam Sasangham Imehi Sangharehi Yadaraham Garo Hidehi Yavibhutayama Satuno Bhante Bhagava Sujira Parini Utopi Vajima Janadangam Manasa Ime Sangaredo Katabana Karabunde Patigan Hatu Aham Dikaradam Vidaya Sukhaya Araham Samma Sambuddho Bhagava Buddham Bhagavantang Abhivade. Vakado Bhagavanta Dhammo Dhammam Namasam Supatipanno Bhagavato Sāvaka Sangho Sangham Namah. Namayam Buddhassa Bhagavato Pupapakanamakaram Romasi Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa.
Brahma Chalokadipati Sahampati Patanjali Adivaram Ayachata Tanti Dasaka Parajaka Jatika Dese tu Dhammam Anukampimam Bhajam.
Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Buddhaṃ Dhammāṃ Saṅghāṃ Namasāmi. So, this occasion, and I guess a lot of what this occasion is meeting in a time when meeting is restricted. So we're doing virtual meeting, and yet there's always what's called satsang, is a meeting in truth. So this is where the when you meet in Dhamma, this is where you can overcome the problems of that occur when one is very much isolated in the sense world. In fact, we're always captives in our sensory prisons, a prison of sense consciousness, which limits us to just a very limited range of experience. You know? And the aim is to liberate, open the heart, so we can realize qualities that go beyond sense consciousness. And this is metta, loving kindness, friendship, you know, clarity, and of course nibbana, realization of nibbana, stopping of suffering. So this evening, or for you this morning or this afternoon, wherever it is, it's my night, going to give a reading extract from Book of the Nines, Sutta 3, the advice to Bhikkhu Meghiya. I won't read all of this, but the story behind it is that Meghiya was acting as the Buddha's attendant monk, and so he said, "We want to go into the local village for alms food," and the Buddha said, "Okay, you go." And he came back and he saw this amazing, nice place to meditate. So he went back to the Buddha and said, "Oh, I want to go off on my own," and found this really great place where I could meditate. The Buddha said, "No, you're supposed to be staying with me, looking after being my attendant." Meghiya said, "Well, you know, you know, you're enlightened. I've got work to do. I should." The Buddha said, "No, you stay here." So anyway, 3 times he asked this, and the Buddha said, "Okay, you know, that's the way you feel about it. Go off, do your thing, you know." So Meghiya goes off and sits under a tree, and he's overwhelmed with sort of unskillful thoughts based on sensuality, ill will, cruelty, and so forth. So he comes back to the Buddha somewhat, you know, contrite. And the Buddha said, "Look," and gives him a talk. And he said, "You know, when your mind is not liberated, there are certain qualities that are conducive to its liberation. First of these is good companionship. You should seek and be with good companions, good comrades. This is the first thing you need. And this is so so standard in the sutras. All fortunate conditions arise dependent upon meeting good people, being with good people. And of course, this young fellow thought he's got his ideas, he can go off and do it on his own. Very often, this is a kind of inclination of immature people. You know, they got all the ideas, they want to go off and do their own practice. You know, the Buddha's saying, no, that's not the way we recommend it. If you're not mature, you shouldn't do this. And in fact, even some accounts of these arahants would be living together in groups of 4 or 5 and have the meal together every day and help each other out and go out in alms round together. And every few days, just sit and talk on Dhamma. And that was considered the model. So the idea of living on your own, practicing your own, is rather a distortion of the way they actually seem to have lived. So when they meant seclusion, it meant you probably weren't hanging out, chatting with each other all day long. You know, you were like 50 meters away or half a kilometer away or something, and you know, you'd get together once a day or at least every few days to talk on Dhamma. And he said, well, you know, the second thing is you should dwell restrained with the training rules, possessed of good conduct and resort. So you're both training yourself in the proper way of behavior, also what to associate with. I think this is an important thing to remember. Is what you do, it's also where you go, or what you associate with. And now, of course, we can very much associate with anything that comes on a screen: literature, magazines, books, movies, Netflix, and so forth. So these, for a bhikkhu, would be considered wrong resort. I mean, you're not actually physically going somewhere, but you're putting your mind into the wrong places. You know, and if you do so, then you must absorb your mind is distracted and drawn out. So, and then the third thing is you should easily be able to get in touch with people who can give you a talk which is about self-effacement, letting go, contentment. Talk that is with the life of self-effacement, sobriety, that is conducive to opening the heart. That is talk on fewness of desires, on contentment, or being secluded, not getting socializing, or arousing energy, on good behavior, and so forth. Concentration, wisdom. So talk that opens the heart rather than closes it or congests it with trivia or with circumstantial stuff. So the talking then on topics that take on deeper. So we're not just dealing with circumstances. Obviously, this doesn't mean you never talk about this, you know, who's doing the washing up today or whatever. But for real, there should be access to focused talk. Yeah. And this is what you get with kalyāṇamitta. Aroused energy for abandoning unskillful qualities and acquiring skillful qualities becomes strong and firm in that. Group support. Pretty much standard. You know, that we, when you do retreats, you generally do them in a group. Monasteries, a lot of it is group practice. Because it's just the pragmatic recognition that the presence of other people just helps you to keep your resolve firm. It takes you over these places where you might drift off or wander or something. You just, just the very fact of sitting together and being together. And you begin through this, you begin to recognize the changeability, the impermanence of your mental qualities and mind states. They come and go. And this is most important because it's not always the case you can have agreeable conditions. But you can have conditions that you can recognize, this is changing, this is going to change. Yeah. Sometimes we're sick, or we're tired, you're not feeling that great. But when you have the understanding, this is just a flow of experience one passes through, you've got a place to not get caught in it all. And this is, and he said, to emphasize again, if you have good friends, good companions, good comrades, then these are the kind of qualities you can expect will easily be aroused for you. They will easily come to you. And so, of course, if we are committed to being kalyāṇamitta, then these are the kind of things we want to bring into our dialogue and companionship with each other. And then, in fact, you're coming down to some pretty common ground, no matter what your job is or your age is, or you're coming down to the common ground. And it's this sense of touching the common ground that is so helpful to get perspective. She's doing this, he's doing that, she's feeling this is what's happening for me, not right now, but the basic common ground is this. And you suddenly, when you get there, you can look at your particularities from a more enlightened perspective. This is just stuff one's going through. Don't get lost in your life, in the circumstantial aspect of it. This is what the common ground is. And this is a place of the kalyāṇamitta. Kalyāna is an attribute of the Dhamma. The Dhamma is always called kalyāna. Translated as beautiful, admirable, uplifting, lovely, inspiring, kalyāna. The Dhamma is called kalyāna in the beginning, kalyāna in the middle, and kalyāna in the end. I mean, it's got a beautiful aspect to it when you first touch into it. It encourages good qualities as you practice it, and it leads you to good place. So, and in a way, the kalyāṇamitta is someone who is helping to embody and live, make that quality living rather than just an idea. It's quite a beautiful responsibility to undertake and to remind oneself we can all be kalyāṇamittas to each other. It's not just I want everybody else to be kalyāṇamitta to me, but I want to be, it's a mutual contract in which we help to hold each other up and steady ourselves. Because for example, talking, you need people to talk to and listen to and be a listener to bring out these qualities. And it's this sense of the mutuality encourages us to express ourselves in Dhammic ways, to be seen and heard in ways that are appropriate. So we begin to reform, because so often our lives are actually formed by the society that we're in, the social group that we're in. That's just the nature of human beings. We're poured into a relational form. Mother, father starts with that. Then you've got friends and peers and brothers and sisters and school people, and then you've got employers and employees and bosses and jobs and society and so forth. You're poured into a condition where relationship is inevitable, whether you want it or not. It's inevitable. And so you can't get out of it. And so you're trying to really use it as a crucible to hold your mind in something skillful. You're saying, well, this then acts as your fundamental network. And the idea is that kalyāṇamitta is the external description of that, association with good people, skillful people, and that is supported by and conduces to one's own skillful attention. So it's said, for example, that the conditions for the arising of right view, there are two conditions. One is your own deep, skillful attention. The other is the voice of another. Voice of another. It's actually not just the idea, but somebody talking, talking to you. So something happens in the living quality of that when you pick up humanity, the sense of being listened to and addressed in a skillful way. These are two, then one internalizes that. Yeah. So that in fact we relate to ourselves, our own hearts and mind, as if, we are being kalyāṇamittas to ourselves. Yeah. They're saying, Sucitto, stop that now. Just pause. Because don't bother with that, go here. So this is what the external kalyāṇamitta can do to support one's own appropriate attention. Don't get caught up in that, go here. And similarly, if you're with another person, then you want to have your attention as something you can help them with. Yeah. So it's very much a shared and selfless kind of Dhamma, because it's not about, personal who's better and who's worse and this, that, and the other. It's just about bringing up and sustaining skillful qualities. So with this is, I think this is why the Buddha mentioned this quality many, many times actually, but he's really driving it home to this rather stubborn bhikkhu who decided he was going to leave, he knew better than the Buddha, he was going to go off and do his own practice. I mean, what an arrogance. And he said, okay, when you've got this established, holding this together, still established in this, you don't leave that matrix. You've internalized the kalyāṇamitta, you've externalized deep attention, you've brought this together into a whole open-hearted way of living. You're open. Yeah. Topics that open the heart rather than congest it. Topics that go straight to the heart rather than drift off into the world of fantasy and speculation. Topics that give you something specific that you can focus on and apply yourself to. Skillful qualities. So you've got that. Now, certain things, be aware of the tendency to passion or lust, simple bodily experience whereby the body heats up. And so to do this, you actually begin to contemplate how your own body is something, the physicality of it is something that's not, you're not delighting in. Now this is called a supa, unattractiveness, and you can think that means you see everybody else as unattractive, but actually it seems that substantially, it's seeing your own body as something that's not got a sign of beauty to it. If you look into the world of nature as well as the world of humans, generally when people start to puff themselves up, you know, like they kind of doll themselves up or put fancy clothes on, you know, it's their own embodiment that they're making attractive. They're kind of delighting in the masculinity or delighting in the femininity. And they said, this is the first movement towards this quality of passion. You are, you know, emphasizing this. Now, if you see this physicality is just, it's just tissues, you know. It's not anything other than that. It's not some kind of charismatic image. It's just tissues. There's nothing, yeah. There's nothing wrong with it. It's just that's all it is. So you use that to cut off that particular heating experience, which can be very hypnotic. And we can see clearly, you see animals going crazy with this stuff, and human beings don't do much better either. You know, fighting and jealous, and the amount of energy that goes into it, just completely mesmerized by this power. So, well, if that comes over you, start to develop this practice. And still, you know, within this, you can still experience good friendship. Doesn't take you out of kalyāṇamitta, doesn't take you out of open-heartedness, doesn't take you out of that. In fact, second quality you should develop is the quality of metta. And this is, again, very significant. It's not an add-on. It's when you recognize the unwholesome roots of mind that the Buddha talked about. He mentioned sensuality, harming, and cruelty. So that's two of those are negative. And right now we're looking in the news. I don't know if you pick up some of the stories, you know, with this lockdown situation, the level of domestic violence has increased. People can't get away from each other. They start to get nasty to each other, slap each other around. You know, these are people who obviously must have had some affection or something to be living together. And yet, yeah, there's something chafing about being with other people who can't do it my way. Yeah. And so this sense of metta is like something that is essential to remedy the sense of irritation with others. Also, the feeling of being disliked by others. We feel intimidated, we feel frightened, we feel guilty, we feel inadequate. You know, we think other people are, you know, and it's all this negative quality. Jealous, not as good as, she's so wonderful, I'm not. All this is still a quality of ill will, often directed towards our own self, our mind, our heart, what we think we are. We can be creating ourselves in a negative mold and creating others in a negative mold. The mold of ill will is there. You just, with that, you just select, the mind selects items and pours it into this mold till she becomes the person I can't stand, or he becomes. You know, this then has to be counteracted with that which accepts fundamentally, puts aside the resisting, the aversion, that jumping up into conflict. And this is not something definitely to direct towards oneself, because often, you know, the heart is quite undernourished. And in daily life and social life, in our societies, because they are so competitive, and work-oriented, then this does not necessarily encourage the quality of acceptance of goodwill. It encourages the quality of performance and competition and getting better, and yeah, and worrying as well. So every day, you ideally, when you first arise, you start to cultivate, may I be well, you know, what, and relating to one's may others be well, not just as an idea, but really getting a feeling for that. So the energies of the heart are then collected together into a state where it easily settles. And this is the feature of all skillful Dhammas, is that when you contact and you align yourself to a skillful quality, the mind tends to settle. If it's not settling, it's generally in worry, agitation, sadness, some negative quality. Not by any means passion, but often negative qualities. So these two primary practices help the mind to come to, oh, it's settled. Third quality he recommends is mindfulness of breathing. So that the tendency to just jump off, you stay with a breath. This tends to moderate the energies of the mind, to sustaining and slowing and lingering in and taking in the qualities of breathing. Not just the air, but the energies of breathing. It helps to satisfy the body, comfort the mind. So then you have your mind is then prepared to contemplate impermanence. So he says, mindfulness of breathing helps to cut off the thinking mind or the distracting mind, and then you cultivate the perception of impermanence or changeability or relativity. Anicca, very fundamental reference in Dhamma. It's the opposite of Nicca. Nicca means the absolute, the unchanging, the eternal, if you like. So anicca means the dependent, the contingent, the changeable, that which requires something else to hold it together. It's always in a state of unsettled. You contemplate this, noticing where that sign is. And so you wonder about this thought, and particularly towards not just flowers and birds, but towards thoughts and emotions, just contemplating they are relative, dependently arisen on other factors. And the very substance or the very material by which one's apparent self gets created is being seen through. And this is why he teaches it. He says the perception of impermanence should be developed in order to eradicate the notion I am. I am. So I am a particular state. I am a particular condition. Whenever that experience is the case, what is the condition? I am sad, I am sick, I am not liked, I am this, that, the other. Mind is stuck on something. What is it stuck on? We need to investigate that. So, and if it's not stuck on anything, it's very difficult to establish the perception I am anything. It's not stuck on anything. Yeah. And, you know, you realize that something, this quality of trying to become a fixed person or a fixed state is so ingrained that we will become negative states. Very, you know, it's not just fun. It's like the mind is attracted towards anything that can give rise to a familiar, steady sense. And so, you know, one's negative habits, oh, that's me. So much so that the Buddha's saying, well, you know, because this is such a powerful thing, then it's best that you at least have some positive habits. If you could become something or the other, you're going to be an I am. You want to be an I am in a positive state. So he gives us this list of factors such as kindness, contentment, calm, steadiness. You know, if you want to be an I am something, be one of those, rather than this kind of endlessly self-created, self-critical, inadequate I am. But how much energy goes into creating oneself? You know, the mind often with thoughts spinning around, circumstances, memories, histories, projects, conversations, just stitching it all together. Now, when it's seen that that is an activity that doesn't create anything apart from its own agitation, the mind could possibly, there was a settledness that one could dwell in. There was a settledness established by loving kindness. There was a settledness established by mindfulness of breathing, because it, you know, is there a settledness that's established just by seeing all this stuff is just spinning around? It's not a self. It never does create a self. It creates an attempt to be a self. Yeah. It creates an ongoing habit to attempt to be a fixed state, but it never does it. Do you notice that? So it has to keep doing it some more. So he said, well, when one perceives impermanence, the perception of non-self is stabilized. One who perceives non-self eradicates the conceit I am, which is nibbana in this very life, in the here and now. That's a powerful statement. And clearly here, as in many of these suttas, you see, you know, what's the whole, all the teachings presented in one sutta. So it's just these lines that the Buddha is drawing, not filling all the details, but these constant lines: skillful behavior, skillful relationship, skillful support, happiness, contentment, simplicity, open-heartedness, warm-heartedness, friendship, yeah, steadying in your body. This is constantly, these same lines are being drawn, you know, towards this point to lift the heart out of these vortexes of imprisonment, imprisoned in our self-imagery, in our self-complaining, in our self-agitation. See, it's just an agitation. And there can be, even to see it as that, and to recognize that that's just that. That's just habit doing its thing. It's not something, one can't own it. If you could own it, you'd stop it, you could do something about it. So this is the beginning of that realization of not self. And the more that that can be deepened in, there is a very pragmatic and accessible avenue to nibbana. Nibbana means the unbinding of all that, the cool turning down the fire of that self-creation. And here, as in many cases, there's a beautiful paradox in that the ending of self-creation is supported by friendship, by other people. It's not supported by, I've got to get away from other people so as I can get more, enlightened. Yeah, because other people, all these self stuff gets in the way. No, no, no. Proper cultivation or friendship and relationship is not about binding and entangling and congesting. It's that which helps to unbind one's own intimate tangle. You realize other people probably listen to you a lot better than you do. Yeah. Other people can see you perhaps a lot better than you do. Other people can get right to the point, wise people, of what's happening for you better than you can, because we see everything through this distorted perceptions, trying to become something, trying to prove something, trying to defend ourselves, trying to accumulate something. That messes everything up. So this is where the spiritual friendship is supportive for deep attention. And these are the two legs, two limbs of the stream enterer. So in your practice, remember, it's ironic that we're in this somewhat separative state, but in a way we always are in lockdown. We're normally locked down inside a skin bag. So no excuse, you can still use our telephones and Zooms and consider and reflect and attain noble company even in this situation. And remember the noble company that you have and the noble companion that you can be. And then you're in line with what the Buddha is recommending here. So I'll offer that for your reflection this morning, this afternoon, this evening, anytime you like.
Andamayam Dhamma Kataya Sadhu Karam Dadamase Sadhu 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 Anudami.
Okay, so let's just spend some time sitting, taking any aspect of that to touch the heart at this particular time and make good use of it. Dwell in it, linger in it, let the mind rest in it at any particular point. So as people have mentioned, Mother's Day, it's again very fitting that, it starts right there, doesn't it? Our sense of being with others starts, we come in. We can't get more involved than that. You come in to this very, chitta comes into this life within another person, within the body of another person. And, and that's where it starts, right there, being fed, looked after, and so forth. And this then is something that we recognize as the very fundamental crucible of being human. And we should see each other in such a way that we act as mothers, fathers, and supporters, friends, prepared to give ourselves for the welfare, for each other's welfare. So be well, and if conditions support, you can meet again. Supatipanno bhagavato sangha sangho samha